folks. Thanks for tuning into the Banff podcast. We're here with a stellar panel.
I see what you did there.
See? It's not all dull here. Right below me is Jacob Blackmon. How you doing, Jacob?
Hello.
And below Jacob will be Alicia. You can call her Lala. Hey, why I called you Alicia because it's Alice combined with Lala.
I think it's better you just start calling me Lala because apparently you can no longer remember my real name.
I'm a grown man.
Okay.
I can't call you Lala.
Your naming privileges have been revoked.
From now on, Mike will call you Lallis.
I will call you co-host number 3. And beneath co-host number 3 is Owen Casey Stevens. How you doing, Owen?
Hi, folks. I'm doing great, all things considered.
Yeah, here in quarantine day number 15. I'm glad to see you.
Well, or as I like to think of it, my introvert life.
Well, there you go. And speaking of introvert life, I know Walt has been housebound for a while. How you doing, Walt?
Oh, I was so happy to get that cast off my leg this morning.
Is your new sci-fi leg augmentation taking hold?
I'll show you pictures after. It looks like I have a Frankenfoot. It's awesome. Yeah, I am officially going Gollum.
You don't make cool noises like when you run?
Only when I run, and that's usually my keys jingling.
All right.
It's green and has bolts on the side, you've got problems.
All right, so Jacob and Owen have a cool new project called the Starfarer Legacy Bestiary. I get all the words in that title right?
It's Starfarer Adversary Legacy Bestiary.
All right, I know I was going to miss one. And here's a cool hype video I made because I have way too much time now that I'm in quarantine. So let's check it out. You guys hear the audio?
Nope.
I don't.
Nope.
But pretty pictures. Pretty pictures.
All right, so it's going like bow wow, bow wow, bow wow, bow wow, bow wow.
I promise you that is better than any video that would have been in that.
All right, I'm uploading to YouTube now. We'll be able to get the audio off of that. So
fair enough.
That's weird. Jacob heard it earlier. That's freaky. All right.
We try not to judge.
Yeah.
The Space Lich.
Now, is it lich or lick or like?
I say Lich. Well, I know a lot of people say Lich.
Albear. No, sorry. Missed it.
Uplifted Albear. Yeah.
The Uplifted Albear is a particular fan favorite.
So hey, right now, just so we don't miss any of the important details, this is on Game on Tabletop. It's funding right now as we speak, and you guys are brave, right? Because I mean, the world is sending into chaos all around us, and you guys are funding a game. So good on you. That's impressive.
So the timing is perhaps not perfect. There have been a lot of crowdfunding campaigns going on recently from a lot of different people, some of which are big and awesome. Our friends over at Everyman Gaming were doing a Starfinder Kickstarter recently, and we were trying not to overlap with them because we have a very similar fan base.
Yep.
Everybody Games. And so I thought it would be smart to wait until they were done and then give it a beat and then launch. It turns out in this particular case, that might not have been the smart move. So we'll see. On the other hand, people are home now, so they've got lots of time to watch process videos and might be doing a lot more gaming and need more monsters. And who knows? We're just hoping for the best at this point. I mean, I understand that people have priorities. I get that. I'm not pushing anyone to do anything that they can't afford, but obviously we want to put as many eyeballs on this as possible. And I think it's an awesome project, even just to read and look at Jacob's art. So I hope that we get the word out and enough people are interested in it that we at least hit our funding level.
I've been pretty successful with my bestiaries in the past. The superpowered bestiary was really popular. The Superpowered Legends, which is effectively a bestiary. It's just, full of heroes and villains. It did even better. So I would imagine, considering Starfinder has a much larger fan base than Mutants Masterminds, that this would do equally as well. But like Owen said, I think we just hit it at the wrong time with all the campaigns and then the quarantine. but I'm still pretty confident with our game on tabletop, because Paizo ran a very successful crowdfunding campaign for their I want to say it was the
Kingmaker campaign.
Kingmaker, yeah.
All right, hey, I've got this video with audio now. You guys mind if I am self-indulgent and play it again?
Oh, it's your podcast, man. Go for it.
It could be as self-indulgent as you want. Okay, hang on.
There we go.
And here is the Starlich, Space Lich.
That's fun. That's lots of fun.
All right, sorry about that. I just yeah. Anyway, so cool art, cool stuff. What all creatures did we see in that video, Jacob?
Okay, let's see. Of course, got the Star Lich. There was the Djinn, the holding up the lantern. Got a couple mimics in there. The regular mimic, and then there's a starship mimic. The Cyber Centaur, the uplifted Albear. Let's see here.
Hill Giant.
Yep, the hill giant, the ogre. And I know there was one. The succubus.
The whole point behind this is that Starfinder is built on the legacy of Pathfinder, and therefore is in the same universe, the same cosmology, and has, in theory, all the same monsters. So there ought to be Vrox in Starfinder, but since Starfinder is also trying to hit all of the alien species and all of the weird creatures from beyond, and only put out a couple years worth of books, they haven't had a chance to hit every conceivable or even every major popular monster out there. And there are people that want to be able to take those classics and say, okay, what does a hill giant look like in a science fantasy campaign with cybernetics and augmentations and starships? What does a giant empire look like in space?
What does a giant empire look like in space?
It's big.
A lot of big things. Basically, the concept I came up with that I talk about in the Bestiary is you have the fire giants at the top being the rulers and the nobility. You've got the frost giants acting as their enforcers and police and raiders, and then you have hill giants functioning as their grunt troops who just go in there and smash things, and then the frost giants come in and mop everything up.
And that's part of what I really like about this project, is that we didn't just update the stats for these monsters. Jacob did a lot of work updating the concepts for these monsters. So if you want to do against the giants in space, you can do that. But you can also take any of the classic science fiction tropes of the evil empire, or even potentially the allied empire of warrior races. There are lots of things that show up a lot in sci-fi, especially soft sci-fi, that we can adapt with this material. And if someone says, well, isn't a hill giant in space a little silly looking because they're picturing a club and a lion skin, we've got this art that Jacob's done, and it's not the norm for one person to do all the writing and all the art, right? Frequently you're like, well, that can't be quite what that's supposed to look like. The artist must not have gotten an art order that was quite right. They didn't have time to fix it. I run into that all the time with role-playing games. And it's one of the reasons why I love it when Jacob does this, because I can say, yeah, we're looking right now at the hill giant. That's the hill giant. We know it because he drew it. He did the description. So we can be sure that the unified vision of what he had in mind is what makes it to this book.
Yeah, you hardly ever see that. I mean, usually there's kind of a mishmash of artists, and as you say, it kind of gives you a different feel. But it's all one guy. So
There's a tiny bit of writing I'm doing, but I mean a tiny bit, for Starship related things, for example. Other than that, this is all Jacob's baby. And you don't normally see that because not many people are good RPG writers and good artists. There are a few. There's Jacob, there's Crystal Frazier, there are some others out there. And then the other reason is it's a stupid amount of work. I mean, we're talking about a more than 100-page, more than 150-page book with lots and lots and lots of entries. Jacob can draw like the wind, but even so, this represents a major investment of time for him, which is why we wanted to do a crowdfunding campaign so we could say, hey, look, he's done this much work. We need this much money minimum to cover his time and effort and actually get these things out there. And so far, when we've done that, as he said, it's worked out very, very well. We hope that we will, and if we don't have a huge crowdfunding campaign, there's still a decent chance of good sales going forward. But it's a project that we've been working on for a really long time, and it represents a pretty big effort on his part in particular. I had the easy part, right? I came up with marketing text. I had suggestions like, "Ooh, you ought to do uplifted owlbears." That's my job.
I couldn't believe how many people wanted uplifted owlbears.
I mean, owlbears are popular, uplifted bears are popular. It is in that regard a no-brainer, right? And again, it's updating the concept. If you've got mad scientists or whatever uplifting creatures, that mad scientist who uplifts the bear or creates the owlbear is going to go that step further. And it's the idea of getting to play as a playable race. An uplifted owlbear, I think, is one of the things that's just going to be popular with folks. And then there's stuff like that walker, for example, that we're looking at now, that we're throwing into this that is adapted from popular concepts, but isn't necessarily only updated from previous campaign settings, right? Like that is effectively a dinosaur in the modern setting. Although our first stretch goal, which we may or may not reach, was to have a whole slew of undead dinosaurs, for example, which
Owen,
we love to do.
You're supposed to think that you're going to reach all your stretch goals.
I would normally think that we're going to hit all of our stretch goals. We've had great success with that in the past. At the moment, I'm trying to be realistic. So please, if you're watching or listening to this, go back this so that all of Jacob's time and effort is rewarded. He's really done a tremendous job with this project, and I want to see him be encouraged not only with this, but to do more of these.
Yeah, I would love to do that. I have plenty of more ideas. I just hoping this one works out. And I know even if the campaign doesn't work out, the book will still get out, but
we'll have to reassess and figure out what we're doing. But
we may have to divide it into smaller pieces is the problem. I would love for the full book to come out, but we'll see.
I guess we should mention this is a free preview that's available right now on DriveThruRPG.
Yes, we had Owen and LJ put that together, so we can get some additional advertising. It looks like a lot of people are taking a look at it, and I'm pretty happy with how it looks. I'm really glad the walker got in there, because I was really happy with that idea of turning an Allosaurus into. I have two versions of that. There's an Allosaurus and a Tyrannosaurus as a walker. So one's a little smaller, one's a little bigger. So you got a lot of variety in there for builds.
Now, do both of them have tiny little hands?
Yes, they both have tiny little hands.
but they have guns now, so they don't necessarily have to worry about the size of their hands anymore.
That's what my mom used to say about me when I joined the Army. So I can sympathize. The artwork looks amazing. How has the reception been for the free preview, where people are checking out some of the material? Has anybody used it in a game so far?
I haven't gotten feedback for anyone who's used it in a game so far. The reception so far seems to be, wow, that mimic is cool, and wow, uplifted owlbears are a neat idea, and that's kind of all we've got. And I think part of the issue is that people are still trying to figure out how are they going to run games in the era of social distancing. And of course, there are lots of great virtual tabletops and ways to do that, but people are adjusting now, and that's that timing issue we were talking about.
Right.
I hope that it will see significant use, but we just don't know what the life is going to be like for the moment.
Right on. I mean, has anybody like I don't know, like Jacob or anybody, like has he, have you guys thought about running a game with some of these concepts and showing them off? Have you done that?
We have not done that. Again, we too are trying to adjust to the new life. So there's, previously part of my plan whenever I needed a video was to go to someone's house and gather the people I needed and set up the camera. And we don't want to do that now for everybody's sake. And then there's just the day-to-day grind of, hey, how many weeks of supplies do we have? Do we have our medications? How's our toilet paper supply? And as stupid as it is, that eats up time, and it bites into our ability to spend as much extra effort promoting things like this.
I keep hearing you talk about toilet paper eating time and biting into, and all I can think of is now the mimic acting as toilet paper. And it's just
speaking of the mimic,
that would be terrifying.
I mean, one presumes that there has to be a war material mimic, right?
Oh, that's great.
It pretends to be a med pack or an ammo crate. So in the middle of a battlefield, it'll sneak out and look like that objective point you want to get to, especially a medical tent, right? The medical tent mimic eats good because people go there when they're already injured.
This puts a whole new spin on MASH.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, here's the other thing.
Wait.
Go ahead.
It's a monster mash.
Now, if we had timed that right, we could have had broken this up into a musical. But that brings the other thing to mind. I mean, mimics are classically, just out for themselves, just to, feed. But I mean, what if you I have a 70-pound flying chainsaw sitting there on the ground. So that is basically a weaponized set of teeth if we need it. What about weaponizing a mimic, almost like a military working dog or a police dog?
I can see that easily happening, especially because people forget mimics are intelligent.
Yeah.
They're not animals. They're smart. They have a shape-shifting ability. They can go for weeks to months without eating, so they can be patient, and you can easily have a space empire use mimics as weapons of warfare.
Oh my God! I mean, could you just imagine the interrogation scene? It's like, look, sit down. I know normally somebody would be punching you in the face, but that's not really the way they roll. It's just me, you, and Rufus. And when the guy says, well, who's Rufus? And the chair says, yo, what's up?
Exactly.
I mean, how scary would that be? That'd be terrifying.
It's a different angle on John Carpenter's The Thing, right?
Yeah, totally. Well, and if you need a spy, for example, just give a mimic a comm unit and make it look like something someone wants to steal. And when the enemy troops come into the area, they'll pick it up and take it to their base, and they'll hide it because they don't want it to be taken by their superiors. And now you've got a mole in the enemy operation that just happens to look like a crate full of money.
So you guys are writing a whole mimic adventure path is what I'm getting from this, right?
And if not, there needs to be.
Yeah. That would be one of the unannounced stretch goals, right? So if people want to fund this project and we get a little further along,
we can do some potential adventures and layers and stuff like that as stretch goals.
Now, for those people who have been, unintentionally locked away and are now starting to discover things like role-playing games and online virtual tabletops and stuff like that, when they pick up something like this bestiary and want to use some of these concepts, say Starfinder might not be their cup of tea, or maybe they're already playing a game where this would fit, how easy is it to convert those concepts over to another game?
So, I mean, Starfinder is obviously built on the same engine as Pathfinder and 3.5 D&D and most of D20, right? So you're sort of asking two related questions. If you are new to role-playing entirely, I don't want to start recommending, hey, you want to adapt this set of rules to another set of rules, because that's a kind of advanced. The concepts, however, are easy. And one of the things we have done here is we've taken some classic fantasy concepts. So if you are playing Esper Genesis and you want some ideas and some visuals to add into what is essentially a 5e D&D game in space with some additional rules, you can totally take these and adapt these ideas and say, okay, I will use the D&D dinosaur rules, but I'm just going to say it's an Allosaurus, and I'll have its bite attack have a 60-foot range, and that's its laser, and we're good. So that's easy. If you're wanting to get into Starfinder specifically, Paizo has released a Starfinder beginner box, which, I mean, back when I worked at Paizo, I worked on that. It's very popular. It's a great box. It comes with everything you need to play, right? It's got dice. It has a map. It has pawns. So you can buy that one box, and you and a few friends can get playing pretty fast. And once you've got that, you can take the full version of Starfinder rules and say, okay, I see they've got two different kinds of armor class. The beginner box only has one. I'll just use one of those numbers, and that'll be close enough. So if you're just getting into role-playing, I think Starfinder and the Starfinder beginner box is a great way to do that. And anything that's Starfinder compatible is pretty easy to bolt onto that once you're familiar with the content in the box.
Right on, right on. So somebody could see this and be like, well, what is this? And then track it back to that beginner box, and then immediately start playing uplifted owlbears if they wanted to.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's pretty cool. That's definitely pretty cool.
The whole point of the beginner box was to introduce new people to the core concepts of Starfinder. And we talk a little bit in the beginner box about, hey, here are some of the differences between these and the hardback rulebook. Because the hardback rulebook is 500-something pages long. If you want to say, hey, kids, want something fun? Here's an encyclopedia. Memorize this. It's a bit much to take in all at once.
It's a bit much, yeah.
But one of the great things about Paizo having the Starfinder compatibility license is that, unlike just using the OGL, we can actually put the Starfinder compatible logo on this project, and all of our Starfinder compatible stuff from Rogue Genius and Everybody Games and all of our partners. So if someone gets the beginner box and they're at home and they're like, well, I don't want to go out. I've gone through all the material in this. What can I grab and adapt? That logo's right there. And so they know that stuff will work with it.
Hey, welcome back, Alice. The Mimic ate your internet.
Yep, the Mimic ate my internet. So for anyone who doesn't think the Mimic's smart, the Mimic has the entire internet at its fingertips.
That's disturbing.
A Mimic who looks like an internet router.
I gotta say, I want a T-shirt now that says "Mimic ate my internet."
See, I want to do a Starfinder campaign about 5 mimics living as sexy singles in New York in the 90s. And they go out and have wacky adventures and meet new friends, then eat them and go back to the apartment and coffee shop and crack wise. Can we do that?
Well, not many people know that the movie Mannequin is actually about a mimic that convinces someone that it came to life. So that movie's sort of already been made. And it got a sequel, Mannequin 2.
Well,
was there a Mannequin 2?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes, there was.
That disturbs me. I mean, that really, really disturbs me. And as for getting a shirt like that, Owen, I'm sure Jacob can draw something and get that on Redbubble.
I could.
Yeah, I'm positive.
Yeah, Mannequin 2 on the Move, starring William Ragsdale and Christy Swanson of Buffy the Vampire fame.
That was the first place I ever saw Christy Swanson.
Wow.
I'm so sorry.
I think we need to have a watch party now. I got time on you guys.
Please, no.
And if it's on Netflix, there's a Netflix Chrome extension that allows you to line up multiple people's Netflixes for a single viewing from multiple places. So,
yeah, I heard about that. So that people who are, can experience a movie together.
Yeah. Yeah, and if one of you pause, that all gets paused, and there's a chat function. It's a great idea for our current circumstance.
Just like in the olden days, we can watch a movie together.
Yes.
The way Grandma and Grandpa used to do.
Well, I mean, when LJ and I are apart, when one of us is traveling, frequently we will have a movie night just so we're doing something together. But it does require us to have a link and be going 3, 2, 1. Wait, I'm buffering. Okay, now, go now. So something that links everything together would simplify that significantly.
Yeah, I was going to play this trailer for fun, but I saw it starts off in medieval Europe, and I'm less interested now that I see a troll in the background. So,
also a mimic.
Also,
also
they're all mimics.
There's all kinds of fiction that becomes a lot more interesting if you think everyone's a mimic.
Well, no, some of them are doppelgangers.
Yeah, the usual suspects. There's a whole new level there.
Yeah.
What if
Now I want to create Now I want to create a Starfinder PC who's a doppelganger who has mimic armor, mimic blasters, just wears a family of mimics as their armor and weapons.
That would be hysterical. You aim your blaster at somebody, and all it does is yell out "pew pew pew" and try and bite people.
It's a sonic attack.
And what if it's a really loving, like supportive, functional family of mimics that like to kill people and take over as sentient beings? I think this is working for me, guys. I'm on board with this. Wait, Owen, you were saying you weren't quite sure how to do online games. Our friend Alice, directly below me here, also called Alicia sometimes, I hear.
And soon to be called Allosauruses, right?
Allosaurus, Lallis. Don't forget Lallis.
She does that a lot on Babies with Knives, our sister podcast.
We do that a lot, yes.
Yeah, and I've been involved with some people that do it. There are lots of great ways to do it. It's just not how I had done things, and therefore I will have to figure out which set of systems I want to use if we're going to do that.
There's an awful lot. There's Astral Space, Roll20. Is World Anvil another one, Alice?
World Anvil is more like putting your campaign details online.
It's a Wikipedia that you can run from, so it's like having all your modules and such, and then it can be programmed so that you can even click it to have the dice. So you have your little tablet in front of you, and you can run from it. But you don't have the actual miniatures or the or a map on World Anvil. So you can theoretically run from it if you're just doing Mind's Eye, though. But there's Astral, there's Roll20, there's Fantasy Grounds, and there's a couple more. I should look up my list.
As an aside, for those interested in getting into virtual tabletop for the first time, our friends over at Astral have released all of their paid tips and tricks that go along with a paid membership. Those are free until the the end of April, I think it is.
Yeah, I think that's right. There's a big announcement about it. Since people were at home, they were trying to make it easier to get in there and get that used. Yeah,
they're very nice people. We had them on the podcast a few months back. We should probably have them back because this is a cool offer, and it might be.
You definitely should.
Yeah. Hey, here's their website right here, astraltabletop.com. So, because I got a feeling this might be going on for a while. My kid's school just announced they're not going to reopen this school year. So we're effectively homeschooling. They're going to have distance learning for first graders, which basically means I'm a homeschooler.
Yeah.
Hopefully you have Play-Doh or slime.
I mean, there's no way to know for sure how long this situation is going to last. And I'm not a virologist, and I'm not a pandemic expert. What I am is an independent creator and a businessman. So I'm trying to adapt our situation to the situation as quickly and with as much accurate information as I can. Now, in some regards, I'm at an advantage, right? I work from home. This is my office. So I have not had to change whether or not I'm going to work. On the other hand, I depend on people having time and money to play and buy games for my office to bring in any income. So it's a really fluid situation. And I know that there are a lot of people who, for example, write games part-time, and it's their side gig, and their normal gig is, for example, being a bartender. And there are no bars to tend at the moment. So there are people out there that are looking at this as the primary way that they're going to need to make money for a while. So even if it's not us, if you are in a circumstance where you are looking for entertainment, there are very few things that give you as much value per dollar as a tabletop role-playing game.
Absolutely.
You can spend $20 and you can get a rule book that you can read and then you can play and it can spark ideas, or you can pay $20 and get to see a first-run movie at home once. I'm not saying that that's not worth it, but all of my role-playing game books, I get hours and hours and hours of use out of. And it's a great way to sit around with my friends. I know a lot of people have started role-playing, especially with things with like the beginner box with their children, since you may have children at home that you did not expect to have home all the time. And if you don't want them going out and running around and joining the neighborhood kids, and I get it if you don't, you'll have to come up with something for them to do. So I encourage, and I'm not sure why I think anyone who doesn't know about role playing is watching this podcast, because this seems like a pretty role play savvy crowd. But if you've
I've got reach, man, you don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Good. And plus, these are things that people who are watching this podcast can suggest to their friends who aren't. There's a whole universe of entertainment out there. Oh, thank you. Great. Now we've got Thunderdome on the screen.
I'm just saying, this is your option. You can play role-playing games or go to the outside world, which is this now.
Yeah. If you break a deal, you face the wheel. Also,
when do we start dressing like that? Like tomorrow?
Yeah, I have those earrings ready to go.
Well, there is an annual event called Wasteland Weekend. And the idea is to drive cars that look like they come out of the Mad Max universe, and you are supposed to dress up like that. You can dress up in any post-apocalypse style outfit you want. So if you show up as like a Rifts glitter boy, that's totally acceptable. Or any of these weekend warrior types, but you have to show up in costume. If you do not, they will tear off your clothes and put you in a makeshift costume of their own design.
And Jacob means there used to be an event. Obviously, no one's getting together and doing that now.
It'd be funny if the makeshift costumes were all like those 1970s Halloween costumes where it's like, the plastic mask you can't breathe through and like the plastic vinyl smock with the picture of the guy.
And I don't know for certain that those events aren't secretly happening. I mean, there's news everywhere about how people are defying the shutdowns and the quarantines, how thousands of people are gathering. I've heard about these house parties people are throwing in shutdown locations. And you can find on apps the 200 to 300 strangers in a person's house because they are tired. They want to defy and have personal freedom. So, this might be a gathering that people are actively doing. Who knows?
There's like 7 southern states who haven't done anything. Texas still has public schools open. So, I mean, yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah, yeah. In Florida, everything's shut down, but the beaches are full of people.
The beaches are still open.
Yeah. And I have a friend who apparently was saying that her colleagues were hoarding toilet paper, but going into these 200 to 300 people parties that are defying shutdowns. And I'm like, I hope you can work from home because you don't want to be around those people.
Well, hoarding gets a bad knock, but I got to say, it's just fun. I mean, people saying that people can talk whatever they want, but it's. I got 200 rolls of toilet paper right back here, right now, behind that telescope, and I just feel good about it. So I'm lying. Sorry, I was.
Yeah, no, we could tell, right?
Are you going to mummify yourself later? Because
that's a whole other show.
There are only a few acceptable reasons to have 200 rolls of toilet paper.
Mm-hmm.
Mummification should be one of them.
If you've got 20 kids in your house, then maybe that is in fact what you need.
20 kids who just ate tacos.
Yeah,
it's taco night.
Jacob, talk a little bit about how you picked the monsters for this, because I know you went through a process.
Oh yeah,
he's back on subject. All right, I was getting worried about that. Thank you.
Blunt force segue.
that is a skill that I have yet to pick up. So. Yeah, I was very selective about the creatures that went into this. I wanted to make sure that we weren't covering things that had already been done. So I purposely went through all 3 of the alien archives that have been produced by Paizo, and I went to Legendary Games. They had previously released an alien bestiary that had a ton of creatures that they had converted from Pathfinder, and I wrote an entire list of everything there. Went through the first 2 to 3 of the Pathfinder bestiaries, writing down the popular monsters, making sure which ones crossed over and which didn't, and pretty much started from there. So there are aboleths in the Legendary Games bestiary, but we've put a couple of aboleth variants into the Legacy bestiary, which I think you'll really enjoy.
A monster that is super, super, super creepy, but I think underused. How do you get space aboleths, or do they stay like all aquatic and just cross on like big ships or something like that?
Well, much like the Cthulhu mythos, some things come from space originally, and a lot of the oogly tentacly monsters that I put in here, I have space as being their origin. They were just either trapped on the fantasy world, or this was merely one world of many that they have already been to, and now that they're dealing with a larger cosmic scale, their plans have to get bigger. So,
and of course, one of the interesting things about a science fantasy setting is that they don't necessarily, for example, have to have spaceships to be a space empire, right? You've got teleportation gates, you've got planar travel, you've got the literal ability to call a demon of transportation to take you where you need to go. So you can have creatures that live down in the depths and simply go from the depths of one world to the depths of another world to the depths of another world. Which means that if you are, in fact, a starship-driven empire, you might not even know when you're overlapping with their territory.
And I try to address things like the variations of worlds in the various creature builds, because you can have griffins on any planet. It's just what they look like won't always be the eagle lion thing. Some of them may be this. You might have this beautiful jungle world where you have griffins, and they use the same write-up, but they look like these, peacock jungle cat jaguar thing, and which would, I think, be amazing and beautiful, and I don't want to ever draw it.
I was about to say, I take it we did not illustrate the peacock griffin.
No, I have not done a peacock griffin. I did recently do a peacock serpapard, so we might be able to do something like that.
So, Jacob, I have a very important question about the Coca-Cola machine mimic.
The real thing cola, yes?
Yes, the real thing cola. So does that mean that all the bottles in there are mimic babies? And just how many babies does a cola mimic lay exactly?
I didn't get into that, as I want to leave some things up to a GM as to how some of the ecology works in their individual campaigns. But yes, it is full of little mimic babies. Much like there are some species of fish that, to protect their children, will swallow them and just hold them in their mouth. But then a mimic can just go, surprise, and little mimics coming out and attacking you. That was the idea.
And
Cool.
you thought you wanted a diet real thing cola.
Can we talk about
the running will give you a diet.
Fair enough. Let's talk about the cool stretch goals, like Cannibal Clowns from Outer Space, inspired by a movie I think we're all familiar with.
So these are actually add-ons. These are just things that you can get at a discount if you buy into the regular campaign. And so the add-ons are things that they're legacy-related things that have proven particularly popular that we offered up for people that are trying to get a lot of legacy content into their game, or a lot of monster content. So yeah, Cannibal Clowns from Outer Space is something I wrote as a very focused monster book to add a very specific form of threat to your Starfighter campaign.
All right. Moving down, we have Horrifically Overpowered Feats, which might be the most aptly named supplement I've ever heard of.
Yeah. Our pitch on Horrifically Overpowered Feats is don't use this, don't buy it.
And for some reason, it's the most popular of the line.
They're unspeakably overpowerful. They're not balanced. I'm not even going to claim they're well written. They're technically usable, but there is no reason to ever add this to your campaign, or even read it, or for that matter, even look at it.
That's some genius next level marketing, Owen. I'm jealous.
We have, this is our first Starfinder Horrifically Overpowered Feats. We've got like 4 or 5 Pathfinder Horrifically Overpowered Feats books, because I kept telling people, don't buy this, don't use it. There's no content in here that you can get any benefit out of. And then it would go gold. So I'd write another one, because it's not like I have to play test them. The number one complaint we get from them is, oh, these aren't that horrifically overpowered. Oh, I'm sorry we didn't meet your standard of unusable.
Yeah, you don't know what people are doing out there in their home games. It can get ugly. So
Yeah, certainly. A friend of mine recently joked that you should never worry about trolls because when you start getting trolls is when you've actually made it. I don't know how true that is because I know that for me I was like, this is why I didn't want to get into doing a lot of the projects that we do because I'm afraid of trolls, but this is what I've been told. So if you have a lot of trolls, based on that, it sounds like you are doing it right. And you have a lot of fans who love your products, including myself and Brandon. So
thank you so much.
And Legacy Gunslinger is another add-on.
Yeah, this is our most popular existing Legacy book. It takes the concept of the Gunslinger character class from Pathfinder and updates that concept to Starfinder. Now, that is available as a character class. There's a full Gunslinger character class in there. But guns are not only more common in Starfinder, they're ubiquitous. So there's also a Gunslinger archetype so that any character class can also be good at using guns. There's a Gunslinger fighting style for soldiers so that soldiers can really easily adapt to picking up guns. It turns out that people that play Starfinder frequently like their characters being good with guns. So we took a lot of those concepts and updated them and made them applicable to a broader range of characters.
So you want to play a Mal Reynolds or a John Wick in space, this is where to go.
Exactly.
Can you play a gunslinger who shoots things around corners with those guns by bending the bullets?
I don't think so. I don't think we went full wanted with it. But I mean,
Okay.
you know, if it proves popular enough in the Kickstarter, we can always do a second Legacy Gunslinger.
Okay.
and a third and a fourth and a fifth.
Yes, absolutely. No, our stretch goal at the moment is a set of 6 undead dinosaurs. Jacob has art already for undead dinosaurs, and taking legacy concepts, the idea that, hey, it's not just Jurassic Park, it's Jurassic Mausoleum Park, is a place we thought people might be interested in taking their campaigns, and the rules aren't already conveniently ready to go. So, Gulosauruses.
Indeed.
Do they have tiny hands as well?
Some of them do. Others less, because they have fully usable hands. I've got some undead Deinonychus art.
Nice.
They can totally use their hands.
We haven't hit that goal yet, so exactly which monsters we put in would vary. But I personally have an idea in my back pocket for a Triceratops vampire with blood-sucking horns.
Oh my god.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, that would be a little intense. I think the players would freak out a little bit seeing that coming at them at about 40 miles an hour.
It would probably also have a little black cloak, because vampires always have cloaks.
Indeed.
Who's making a cloak for a Triceratops?
It's a mimic.
Oh.
Cannot hear you, Mike.
Nope.
And he's gone
Mike
again.
You're totally silent. Sorry.
Mike's mic is mic'd out.
We've lost Mike's mic. Mike can obviously hear us.
He'll come back.
Here we have some of the undead dinosaur art.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, at least you know that if you're swallowed by that second one, you're okay because you can just pop right out.
Well, then you just write it up. So yes, it has swallow whole. Yes, you come out automatically, but you take additional slashing damage as you do so because its ribs are sharp.
Yep.
Indeed.
Yep.
But yeah,
absolutely.
And you know, these all look pretty much like zombies, and zombie dinosaur will absolutely be an option. But if you scroll, Mike, if you can hear us, if you scroll down to the Triceratops with the bloody horns, I think we can very easily argue that is in fact a vampiric Triceratops. Yep.
Yeah.
It's a bloodsucker.
Oh yeah.
He looks like he needs a meal.
Yeah, a blood meal.
That Triceratops will drink you like a juice box, a little juice box.
So what's the hardest part about putting something like this together? Kind of like figuring out what to put in, or is it tying the concepts of the game to go along with the artwork?
Ultimately, for me, it was trying to figure out some of the concepts and how they'll fit into science fantasy, because it's easy enough to have to say, well, this is just some magical creature that someone made in their lab, and you can easily do that for some of these. You can have genetics laboratories creating some of these instead of magical alchemical laboratories. But also, you have to figure out that some world ecologies are going to be producing these as is, because it's a science fiction setting. There are worlds out there of infinite possibilities, so some of these creatures are just going to show up due to evolution. And others, I've had to think about, well, how does this work now? So that was some of the biggest challenge for me is figuring out the concept of getting it from a fantasy setting to a science fiction setting and making it work while staying true to its core concept.
When we were originally working on the Starfinder role-playing game at the Paizo offices, one of the questions that came up was, hey, what happens if you're a werewolf and you're on the moon? Does that mean it's always a full moon, or it's never a full moon?
That's weird.
And if you go through the whole rulebook, you will discover that in the core rulebook, there is no mention of lycanthropy, because we couldn't come up with a decision, right? We were like, well, we'll boot that down to a later book. And I don't think there have been any lycanthropes in any official Starfinder product yet. So I don't know that even now they have figured out what is going on with wares in space. And, you could easily just say, hey, if you're a werewolf and you're a space, there is a 1.5% chance on any given day that you are under some astrological sign. Or you could say that it's tied to your home world, whatever that is, if it is a full moon. But then you ask, well, what about planets that have like 5 moons and one of them is full on any given day? Does just your arm become werewolfy because only one moon is a full moon tonight? There are lots of things you can do. And some are cool and awesome, and some get goofy. So that is a lot of the hard work that Jacob has done to go through some of these concepts and say, this is cool, this is an option, here's a place where I'm leaving room for the GM to decide what they're doing.
As a personal note, I would like to think that in the thousands or hundreds of thousands of years, however long it's been between the fantasy age and the space age, that they've come up with a cure for lycanthropy. So you still have lycanthropes who are the natural shapeshifters. You just don't really have to worry about the curse anymore.
Until, of course, you find the world where they didn't come up with a cure and it's overrun with cursed werewolves.
Well, then, of course, you just run down to your local drugstore and get whatever that cure is.
Assuming they've got enough supply of it.
Yeah, it's true.
Turns out supply chains aren't always able to handle an entire world having some sort of infection.
Well,
and that's how we get quarantines. Ah!
And mimics.
And mimics. Yeah, just drop a bunch of mimics. That'll take care of them.
Did someone already do a mimic toilet paper joke?
Yes, that was.
All right, cool. Just making sure. Seems like it was needed to be said. Owen, how is it you're not writing movies for the Sci-Fi Channel? Every time I talk to you, it's like I get 20 ideas for it could be great movies from the asylum. I mean, you never bring up giant snakes or tornadoes, but you're. Other than that, seems like you should be out there. Why aren't you in Hollywood?
I've got Clown-nado in my my view list on Prime. I think
Clown-nado, is there really such?
There really is a movie called Clown-nado.
It's zombie clowns in a tornado.
Yeah.
You guys want to see that trailer before we close?
No.
Oh, you guys are no fun. All right. Speaking of no fun. Yes, go ahead.
As for why I'm not writing sci-fi movies, I've already got this one creative career that very few people are successful at that takes a lot of effort and breaks your heart. I don't need to add another one.
Okay. All right. But you can write really bad movies and make a lot of money.
Well, if they made a lot of money, there'd be more of them. They make some money. The people that are doing that tend to be in Hollywood or New York, and I'm not.
I swear there's like 2 guys working at my Walmart who got production deals from Netflix, but you know, yeah.
Well, Netflix is a different question, especially if people keep staying at home. If anyone with a connection to Netflix is watching now and thinks, hey, we really should give Owen a production deal, feel free. I'll come up with something stupid and watchable.
And there we go. On that happy note, I have to get back. My lunch break is over. I must go back to the corporate drudgery on this laptop over here. So, Alicia, thank you again for co-hosting today. Jacob, Walt, Owen, always a pleasure.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Please take it easy on Lala.
Is this my punishment for coming in less know-me than I normally am because I am absolutely exhausted?
I'm sorry, Alice.
okay.
Forgive me.
No problem. And seriously, Mike, you should just start calling me Lala because it seems a lot easier for you.
I'm a grown man. I can't call someone Lala. It just doesn't feel right.
I have 70-year-old friends who call me Lala, so you should not feel bad about that.
Okay,
is that
but
70-year-old or 70-year-old?
The people are 70 years old.
Oh, gotcha.
Mike's not old enough to feel old about calling me that. But yeah, that's funny. Message received. I shall arrive more know me and less exhausted.
no,
Well, you do you, and let Mike just move on.
how is this my fault? I just stuttered over a name. Sorry, Warren. I won't do that anymore. So
wait, so is that Jacoby there now? And what's Walt? Walt is
Steve.
Jacob's Jacoby now. No one's Warren. Who's Walt now?
I think Buckage, Gnome Calb, and nothing else.
I think this gag has been running in the ground, and it's time to wrap up. I could say that at the end of many podcasts, but I'm saying at the end of this one. So thank you very much for coming out, Owen. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Jacob, Walt, Lala, always a pleasure to have you guys co-hosting. To all of our viewers and listeners out there in YouTube land or iTunes, please check out Jacob's project. Let me get Jacob, say the name for me.
The Starfarer Adversaries Legacy Bestiary.
It's on Game on Tabletop right now for about another 3 weeks. Check it out while you can. And we'll catch you next time on the Banff Podcast.